Hi, it's Penny here, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So this is a very popular tag that we all tend to do around the middle of the year, where we look at our reading so far, how we're going, and perhaps freak out about how we still have a lot of books that we'd like to read in the year, but the year is quickly disappearing. It's not disappearing. Don't freak out. There's still 6 months to go. And the beginning of the year is always a mess because of Christmas and summer holidays in New Zealand. I know you don't have that excuse in the Northern Hemisphere, but it works in the Southern. And we're going to ignore the fact that the end of the year is always a mess as well. But whatever. There's still lots of the year left, so we're not going to freak out too much. But I am going to use this as an excuse to look at some of the books I've read this year and share them with you. So there's a few questions. Let's just get into answering them. Firstly, we've got the best book that you've read this year. And because the next question is about sequels, and actually a lot of the books that I've read this year have been sequels, we're just going to talk about standalones, and it's actually going to be Dewdrop by Kay O'Neill. So this is just a really cute picture book. The art is absolutely adorable, and we've just got Dewdrop, who is this axolotl trying to support his friends as they participate in this sports day. They're all kind of having little crises of confidence, and Dewdrop just gives them the cheer on that they need. It's a beautiful, positive little book. I absolutely loved it. And I need to put a reminder to myself somewhere so that I read it every time I'm feeling sad. I think that's the trick I need to do. Okay, so that's the best book that I've read this year. Then the best sequel that I've read in 2022. There's a lot to choose from because I've been really putting an effort into my goal of Series 0 this year. And so I've read a lot of books from sequels. However, there's also not much of a competition for this one. I definitely know the winner. And that is pretty much the whole Fits in the Fool trilogy could count for this. I think possibly my favorite in the trilogy was the first book, which would still count as a sequel because this is the last trilogy in the bigger realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. So in this series, we're primarily following Fitz, who is the bastard son of the king in waiting, and they kind of take him in to raise him as an assassin for the royal line, because the best thing about a bastard in the family, a royal family, is that he'll keep your secrets. But there's also dragons and these live ships, which are ships that have these mastheads that come alive. There's all sorts of other kinds of magic as well. The wit, where people have the ability to talk to animals, and the skill, where this royal line is able to communicate telepathically and also control people telepathically, and a whole bunch of other things they can do with that. It's just a really amazingly built world, and the characters are all characters I love. So of course, coming up to those final 3 books, it was such an emotional journey just to get there, and then the things that happened in that final trilogy will probably stick with me forever. It's definitely a series that I'm going to read again, even though it's 16 books, 15 books, I don't know what number I said before, but anyway, it's long. And I know it's a big commitment, and as well the pacing sometimes is quite slow. Robin Hobb gives you a lot of details about the characters and the world, and so it can be sometimes a lot to get through. But for me, it was definitely worth it, and it's a series I fully recommend, even though I understand that it's a big commitment. Anyway, I could rave about that series for a long time, but let's not do that today. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. And for this, I'm going to pick Seasonal Fares by Seanan McGuire. It's actually on its way to my library. It says in transit, which means it should be there for me to pick up in a couple of days. So I'm super excited to get to that. I need to clear off all the other books that I meant to read for June so that I can focus on that. But I'm very excited. This is the sequel to Middle Game by Seanan McGuire, which basically has these 2 twins who are being manipulated using alchemy to become godlike beings. And I believe in the second book we're going to be following a couple who has the ability to use seasonal type magic. I don't really know much about it. I'm a little bit afraid that I'm going to not like it. But if I don't like it, I just want to know that I don't like it. And if I do like it, then I think I'm going to love it. So fingers crossed. Then my most anticipated release for the second half of the year would be the next book in the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers. So that's going to be A Prayer for the Crown Shy, which is the sequel to A Psalm for the Wild Built. Those titles are long and weird, but they make sense when you've read the story. They're just really short, beautiful stories about finding your place in the world. The first book, we're following this tea monk as they go out into the world, trying to figure out what's going to make them happy. And while they're out in the wilderness, they run into this robot who's come as a representative from the robots to find out how the humans are going, because the robots actually all went into the wild, said, we don't want to have anything to do with the humans anymore, so if you could just not bother us, that would be great. And the humans then had to find a way to live more at peace with nature. It's a really beautiful story, and I definitely recommend it, and I'm super excited for the second book. I really hope it doesn't let me down, but I have more confidence that this one won't let me down than I do with Seasonal Fears, so we'll see. Okay, then the next question is biggest disappointment, and this is going to explain, I think, a little bit about why I'm feeling nervous about Seasonal Fears. So my biggest disappointment this year was Along the Saltways Sea by Shawnee Maguire. So this is the sequel to Under the Woodward Wall. Actually, this series says that it's not by Shawnee Maguire, that it's by A. Deborah Baker. A. Deborah Baker was a character from Middle Game who wrote these children's books in order to seed people or seed children with these ideas that they wanted them to have so that then certain alchemy would work. It's an amazing concept, and the fact that then Shawnee Maguire went and wrote these books, I was so excited. I couldn't wait to see what they would be like, and I did really enjoy Under the Woodward Wall. And then Along the Saltways Sea, it was not what I wanted. I still don't even really know what the point is. In this world, we have Avery and Zib. Avery's very prim and proper, and Zib is very, eclectic and different, going against the norms. And they're traveling through the up and under. I felt like in the first book, they had a very clear goal, and the journey was interesting as they went along it. In the second book, I was no longer sure what the goal was. I kept forgetting. They just seem to be mucking around. They end up on a pirate ship, and what was the point of any of that? I'm sure it was trying to be metaphorical, but I just hated it. And I was so hoping for this to be one of my favorite books, and I just love the concept so much. I wanted to love it, but it disappointed me. So that's why I'm a little bit afraid that Seasonal Fears being another book in the same kind of world. I mean, the children's books ones, Under the Woodward Wall and Along the Saltways Sea, are in a different world. But, they're part of the same general concept of alchemy. And I'm so afraid that Seasonal Fears is going to be another one in the same world that's not going to live up to my expectations. I think there's so much potential here. I just really hope that Shawnee Maguire can deliver on it. So, fingers crossed. And I hope she's not going to go in a different direction, because maybe if she goes in a different direction, other people would like it. Maybe she'd be happy with it. But if it's not the direction I want, then I'm going to be disappointed anyway. But I'm hopeful for that. And I'm just going to try and forget about Along the Saltways Sea being such a disappointment. I don't know what I'm going to do when the next book from that series comes out, because I know I'm going to want to read it for completeness and just curiosity about whether it could actually be what I want it to be. But also, Along the Saltways Sea was so disappointing. I think I need to DNF that series. Anyway, on a more positive note, the next question is your biggest surprise. So for this, I could say Dewdrop, which was my answer for the first question, but I already mentioned Dewdrop, so we'll pick a different book. I could also say Ballad, because I ended up really enjoying this. I wasn't totally surprised, but I think I really struggled with the first book a bit, and then I picked this up and not gotten very far in it a couple of times and then just put it down again. So picking it up, being this time I'm going to finish it, I was a bit worried, but I did end up really liking this. So this is a musical fairy novel. It is still actually a disappointment as well though, because this was going to be a trilogy. The first book is Lament, then we've got Ballad, and then the third book was never written. And Maggie Stiefvater has said she'll probably never write it, because at this point her writing style's changed so much. In a lot of ways as well, this is Twilight, but with the fairy world and magical music stuff going on. So the age of Twilight style books has left. It's gone. So I can understand why she wouldn't continue this series, but also I'm really sad because the musical element of this was really interesting. We've got a bunch of these very gifted musicians at this special boarding school for musical talent, but the fairies are all hanging around there and trying to draw away some of these musical people into the fairy world. Kind of dark. I really liked it. Actually, another book that was probably even more surprising was Deadbeat by Jim Butcher. I think this was the 7th book in the Dresden Files. So the Dresden Files follows Harry Dresden, who is a wizard and also a paranormal investigator or a private investigator. Basically just trying to help people out and pay his bills in a world where there's vampires and all sorts of other magical creatures. But also Harry himself is not a great person. He's very chauvinistic. He's always trying to protect women and sexualizing them, even in life and death situations. And he's just very annoying. I don't like him at all. However, after struggling through 6 books, the 7th book, I actually really liked it. I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised, and I am now enjoying my continuation of the series. I am still, maybe it's not my favorite, but the 7th book was very good, and I was very surprised by it, but very happy. And then I'll just include one other book that shouldn't have been a surprise, but it was kind of a surprise, and that is White Hot by Alona Andrews. Now, I shouldn't have been surprised because the Kate Daniels series by Alona Andrews is one of my most favorite series ever. I really love it. It's up here, the whole series. But given the cover of White Hot, I didn't really think it was going to be the same thing. I thought it was going to be like one of those paranormal romances that's really focused on the romance and the smut. But actually, this book has very little smut in it. In fact, I would say it has no smut in it. It has a bit of kissing, maybe some mentions of sex, but no smut. If you went into it for the smut, given the cover, I think you would be disappointed. What it does have is some really great characters, some really witty dialogue, a really interesting mystery, and a really interesting world. Just everything that I loved about Kate Daniels, almost. I still think I like Kate Daniels better, but I do think this book series is going to be one that I really enjoy, and so, another pleasant surprise. Then the next question is favorite new author, either a debut or new to you. This one I actually struggled with a little bit because, as I said, I've been really focusing this year on series 0, so trying to catch up on all the series that I'm reading, which means that I'm reading a lot of the same authors that I've read before. I've at least read some books by them before because that's how I started the series. And so when I look through it, I actually haven't read any books by authors that are completely new to me, or at least none that I would count as anywhere near my favorite. So the best answer I can give you for this is Brent Weeks. So Brent Weeks wrote the Black Prism series. I did read Black Prism and really love it last year, but I continued and finished off that series this year, and I really loved it. There are some weird things about it that maybe would make me hold back from actually counting Brent Weeks as a favorite author, just like some of the sexual stuff and the fat phobia, bleh. But the magic system, amazing. The politics and the world, and even the morally grey characters, I really love those parts of his writing. And so I'll definitely be picking up some more things by him and hope for maybe a little bit less of the things that I didn't like. Although I think, I'm not actually sure what other stuff he's published, but I will be looking into that at some point. I think most of the stuff he's published is series, and I'm trying to avoid new series at the moment because, again, series 0. But Brent Weeks, possibly one I'll look into. But I think he's a fairly popular author, so that's probably not really the intention of this question, but it's the best answer I've got. Then the next question is newest fictional crush. I don't tend to have fictional crushes, and again, I'm reading a lot of series that I've read before, so I'm not sure I really have any. There is one character in the Dresden Files that maybe I could make myself have a crush on if I tried. His name is Thomas, but I think I'd have to try. I don't think I really have a crush. I could say Mouse from the Dresden Files, which is Harry's dog. I love Mouse, but that's not really a crush. That's kind of sick, Penny, to offer up a dog as your fictional crush. I definitely know it's not Rand from the Wheel of Time series. I absolutely hate the fact that every girl is in love with Rand. So yeah, the best answer I have is a not Rand kind of answer. Then the next question is newest favorite character. Again, lots of series. Not sure there were new favorites. Oh, I just remembered. I wrote down one answer here on my notes, but I just remembered the actual answer. The actual answer is B from the Fitz and the Fool series. B was introduced in that trilogy, and I love her so much. I have heard that Robin Hobb was at some point writing another trilogy in the realm of Elderlings based around B, and oh my goodness, I would love it if we could get that. But I also heard, 1, she was struggling with it, but 2, also it was based around a pandemic, so it might not happen. But I love B so much. B is my newest favorite fictional character, and I can't tell you anything about her because everything about her is spoilers for that series, but I love her. She's so great. I love her. Okay, then we've got a book that made you happy. So again, Dewdrop, which I mentioned for the first question, would definitely fit under this. It's just an adorable, positive story. But if I had to pick another book, I would probably pick The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. Might be his name. I'll put it here. This book doesn't have much to it. The art is very abstract. We're basically just following this boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse who start talking to each other. They're just saying very like comforting, positive things. So it's in a lot of ways it's just like an inspirational quotes book, but written in a comforting way around these cute characters. But it did cheer me up at the time, so it's definitely one that made me happy. I have to admit, I don't often read books to be made happy exactly, even though they do make me happy, but happy in a like, it's making me feel lots of emotions that aren't happiness kind of way, if you know what I mean. I've actually just remembered another answer to this, which would be this one. Kurangai Tuku. This one, I was made very happy firstly by the format. It's written so there's two halves, and you can start from either side. There's no natural beginning, although I think I decided the natural beginning is probably this side. But I started with this side, and it started out with this amazing kind of sapphic romance between Kurangai Tuku and Hinenui Te Po, and it was just beautiful, and I was so in love with it, and I was so excited about the format. And in the middle, it's kind of got the myth that this is based off, which is Hatupatu and the Bird Woman. It's got like a retelling of that in the middle. So in the middle, you can't see it, but the one side the writing is up the right way, and the other side the writing is upside down, because the format made me happy just because it was so creative. In the actual story, some of it let me down a little bit, but some of it was amazing, and that made me super excited about that. So this is another one that made me happy. I actually just remembered that there isn't a question in this tag about how many books you've read, but there really should be. Let me check how many books I've read this year. I think it's about 65, so that's quite a lot. That's why I think sometimes I struggle to find an answer, because there's so many books to look through, and I overlook ones that definitely fulfill the prompts. So the next question is the most beautiful book you've bought this year. I think I bought this one technically last year, although maybe it didn't turn up to this year. It might have turned up last year. But anyway, I think this is a beautiful book, so I'm going to use this as an excuse to show it to you. So this is A Psalm for the Wild Built, which is the one I was talking about before, with the tea monk going out into the wilderness and meeting up with a robot. Lovely story, and the cover's just beautiful. I don't actually know if I've looked at the naked hardback. Oh, maybe I have. It's kind of boring, although it does have shiny green text. Anyway, that's a beautiful book. I have to admit, a lot of the books I buy are second-hand books, so when I actually buy a beautiful new book, it seems beautiful by comparison regardless. But another one that I bought new that I think is beautiful is Succulents and Spells. I definitely bought this year. This is just a really cute sapphic romance between two witches. It's kind of a cozy mystery. There's not really that much romance, a little bit. There's also monsters that live under the floor, and just, it's set in New Zealand, so it's a beautiful story that I felt like I could really relate to better than a lot of other books which aren't set in New Zealand. So really beautiful with just the little succulents on the front. And then the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I've already talked about Series 0. That's one of the things I'm trying to do this year. Now I have a spreadsheet that calculates this for me, and I need to read about 97 books at this point to complete all the series that I have in progress. As I said, I've read 65 books so far this year. I don't think I'm going to read the final 97 in the second half of the year. Although for the first quarter of the year I was working, so I am reading a little bit more now. But also some of those series, for different reasons, are hard to make progress on. So I'm probably not going to make it there entirely, but I'm hoping to get very close so that next year it will be easy to do. And you never know, maybe I could get it done this year. I'm just remembering that someone was talking to me about working some more this year. If that happens, I definitely won't do it. So that's annoying. But the other goal that I really am hoping to achieve this year is TBR 0. Now, I have a few problems with this. On my actual TBR, you can't quite see it, can you? If I move you up. Like these books here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, plus these 3 secret books. That's my TBR. So, wait, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So like 12 books up there. So that's not that many. However, I have recently acquired a few books as well from secondhand shops that I probably should also read to count TBR 0. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I also have a few books down here. You definitely can't see those. I'll put in some other footage of them. I have a few books down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these books are all series. Either that would mean starting a new series, or ones where I haven't got the first book in the series. I've only got later books in the series. So I'm not counting these at the moment for Series 0 or TBR 0. I'm putting them aside as like a problem that I'm going to deal with later as a separate thing. And maybe it's cheating to not count these as part of TBR 0 or Series 0, but you know what? My sister recently said if you make the rules, you can't cheat. So it's not cheating. I've also just remembered while I've been talking to you that I do also have some books way up here for the Wheel of Time and the Dragons of Pern series. But those are counted in that Series 0 number I said. So yeah, I definitely have lots of books that I want to read. There's also, I made a video about the anticipated releases that I want to read this year. I have holds for most of those at the library, so when they come in, I will get them. I will try to read them. So I have a lot of books that I want to read, and I probably don't have enough time because I want to do some other things as well. But, you know, it's not a bad problem to have, having lots of good books that you're excited about reading. So I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm just going to accept that some of these books will be waiting for me next year. Anyway, those are all the questions. I think there is another version floating around with different questions at the end, but I'm not going to worry about those. So let me know if you want to answer any of these questions. I'd be interested in your answers down below, or let me know if you've made this tag video yourself. As well, let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, because I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.